Hello, everyone. I'm trying to adjust here. I'm doing it on a different, instead of mobile, on the horizontal. Oh, sorry. Hi, hello, welcome back to another Sunday Live. I am super excited to be putting together more of the focused kind of content and building out a couple of these channels, especially because this is a side research that I've been doing that is on a new literary personage and genre that I have coined as omnidimensional authors. And of course, I have like a ton of notes, multiple pages of these notes to go over, because I am starting this series not only helping to understand who and what omnidimensional authors are, but also to start going into the canon that I've been creating and amassing now for years. Like I said, in my, I guess, spare time, because this is originally research and work that I was putting together for my doctoral dissertation. And when I got into my doctoral program, I had a series of synchronicities and channelings that took place that actually positioned me into a completely different thesis. But I live as an omnidimensional author. I am absolutely an omnidimensional author. And I am not going to, stop ever being an OA. And so by doing this work, which I started back in UMass Amherst in my undergrad in Poetics, and then kept within my Harvard years. And so I have been doing this research on various aspects of literature related to a 4-part epic poetry series that I have been channeling since 2012 from Future Humans. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of unpack here, but it's really about what I've been shown as a vision, what paths I'm on. And I would have to say that even though at this current moment, this is mostly one material embodiment, I have many different beingnesses, and they are their own being, and not just in nomenclature, but with the research and the work that they do, who and how they express in the world. There's so many aspects to beingness. So it's really great to be able to talk about omnidimensional authors. I am submitting applications to be able to start doing so on an academic level in 2025 and beyond. And this person, this beingness, of many beingnesses, is very appropriate to be the first in this series now on YouTube lives of omnidimensional authors, because he did live many beingnesses through his literary works, and is one of the first OAs that I ever found while doing my research for distinctive reasons, and I'll go into those here in this live. And his main name, I guess you could say he actually called himself as orthonym. His main orthonym is Fernando Pessoa, a very famous now Portuguese poet from the turn of the century. So, yes, we're going to get into it. And guess what? We are also going to get into the Cannabis Tarot and the Oraculum now. I have the Oraculum here. I have my tarot deck here with me, and I've been called to by Plant Spirit to start bringing up readings, or today we're going to go into kind of the basis of the Cannabis Tarot deck and the Oraculum so that people can start getting, associated with it if they haven't already. Just for your knowledge, the Cannabis Tarot is the first and only cannabis-inspired tarot deck that has existed in the world. There have been remnants of cannabis within other decks throughout history, but I received the channeling through one of the cards that Madame Lenormand had on display at Harvard. Very first night I stepped on campus in 2017 at the Altered States exhibit in the Houghton Library. There's a whole backstory to that too that one day will be known. Very much like Fernando Pessoa, I am omnidimensional, living in different times, dimensions, and realities. So me too, as you will find, are contributing the work that I do in literary, media, research, scholarly, just lived experience in this embodiment or one of the beingnesses through it. That, will probably connect to many more souls in the future even than it might even do in this lifetime. And I'm aware and I'm good with that. But it is, and I am out there a lot more than others might understand, because the Cannabis Tarot was spiritually seated within me, and I spiritually birthed it in June of 2018 after 9 months of gestating, channeling, producing the artwork, the understanding, the foundation of the tarot deck. It is a sacred instrument. It is not a commercial commodity. It has been given a very distinct spell that you need to contact me through the cannabistarot.com website. It is legally binding and registered with the U.S. and the International Trademark and Copyright Association. It is very much a solid grounding of divination and other instrument between our worlds that I am so grateful that Plant Spirit and Madame Lenormand helped me produce. So we'll get into that later. Today is about Omnidimensional Authors and Fernando Pessoa. So it's important to start calling out and letting people know who and what omnidimensional authors are to begin with. So omnidimensional authors are persons that utilize their alternative abilities to receive information, visions, channelings from the ineffable and translate it into a literary or a media work for others. That's a lot, and there's a lot of purposeful intention behind it. So, as a self-described logophile, which means I'm a lover of words, I inherently remember the spell behind the spellings and how language is not our inherent communication, that vibration and frequency and energy is. It is also for that and the beingnesses around us, whether they're human or not, or in other dimensions. They do not communicate with language the way that we do, orally or written. This is an experiment. It's largely to keep power and control, but it's also being utilized at this time during our evolution to understand power and control through spells, through vessels that are created and that hold certain energetic intentions and parameters within them. They're vessels. And language does that. So everything that I'm saying to you here is a vessel of its own accord. And that's why omnidimensional authors utilize the different bridges between the ineffable or the unknown, unspeakable, unknowable, and translate through different alternative abilities, many alternative abilities that I have already designated and that I've already been finding writers, authors, poets, and literary persons under. And all of this can be found on the cannabistarot.com website. That's where I am housing the omnidimensional author canon. It's where the majority of everything that I house is, as homage and acknowledging and honoring cannabis plant spirit for its great work that it has done with me, through me in this lifetime, as well as the other major guides that I've had in this lifetime and other lifetimes, such as Madame Lenormand. So it's important to understand from the very get-go that Omnidimensional Authors as a title and a genre I have not arrived at easily. That there has been a lot of contemplation for many years, a lot of review of multiple other people, other personages, other literary genres. I've been doing this work for years. This was the work that I was preparing for, that I finished an MFA in, around Poetics, for a good 10 years before I even got into my doctoral program. So, you know, for me to shift thesis, an entire, like, you know, positionality within my doctoral program within the last 3 years was no small feat, let me tell you. But it definitely aligns to different beingnesses that are also operating through me, just like Fernando Pessoa. So before we start getting into how amazing Fernando Pessoa is, if you've never heard of him, you absolutely, if this is resonating for you, need to look him up and see just the vastness of that embodiment's, not just work, but entire being, multi-beingnesses, or what he called heteronyms. But before we do that, I want to finish up what omnidimensional authors are, who they are, because this is really important. It's, again, dimensional. So there are various aspects of beingness that are operating in a literary or a media sense, and have been throughout history, that I am finding that are under this canon. But you know, one of the first questions I get is, why would you have to create a new literary personage or genre when there are multiple people that have been being under the classification of some very well-known other spellings for centuries as well? So this was the first kind of conundrum that I came up against, because as an OA myself, I did not feel like I was being represented in the world, nor did I feel like the work that I was doing was being acknowledged. Yes, there is divinatory poetics, and there are, excuse me, other aspects of omnidimensional authors out in the world, but there was nothing that was signifying the translatory aspects of embodiments in whatever beingness that they're expressing through alternative abilities, distinctly calling out this first and foremost translation of the ineffable, or of the unknown and unseen, into a literary or a media personage. If you hear my puppy Eno, my Frenchton Eno, snoring. Yes, I'm talking about you. He's next to me here, peacefully enjoying the Sunday lives, for sure. Anyways, for those that know, you've seen Eno since 2020. He is definitely one of my guides and one of my helpers in this lifetime. Yes, I'm super grateful for him. So anyways, excuse me, obviously my throat chakra, calling my truth, many other personages and embodiments, truth. So what I started realizing when I would start looking at the spells of these other prominent words, whether it was noetics or whether it was, metaphysical, they weren't resonating with me. They hadn't been resonating with me since I channeled the Cannabis Tarot, because there's a shift that's already started taking place within humanity. I've talked about this. I have a YouTube Sunday Live called Humanity Divided. We are distinctly on paths now that have been slowly coming about, mostly through celestial recalibrations of their mechanisms, but definitely being amplified now through celestial activations that have now shifted fully, and that I've been preparing for years, that I'm telling you about, that I've been researching and being called to do for years. And that, many others are also in the same boat. I have found other people that have been doing work even longer than I have on omnidimensional artists. So let's start with the first word, omnidimensional. So when I was initially coming up with that, there was not an encapsulation of literary personage or genre that was feeling aligned with me anymore, because the reality is that I've been living omnidimensionally for many years now. The tarot, channeling it, spiritually birthing it, having the Oraculum come through me, all the things that I've been doing to be in my practice now for years of remembering more and more, of accessing everything, or the Akashic records, what some people would call Akashic records, meant that I was not, my personage, my actions were not being defined by these other vessels or spells anymore. And the main words were esoteric and occult. In fact, when I was looking for a PhD program, even before Harvard, while I was in undergrad at UMass, even when I was in my AA, this had been coming through me, because I had been channeling a 4-part epic poetry series about humanity's future from future humans since 2012. In fact, the first epic is my MFA at Naropa University in the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics archives. It will soon be published. I have other things that I need to publish first. I have many publishings, many channelings, many OA works that I have been sitting on and researching for many years. In fact, this year I finally got one of them out there. Omens, As the Universe, So the Soul, an Everyday Omen Guidebook. I am going to, and have started, sessions about how omens are the poetics of history, and that they show energy and frequency in our everyday and a dimensional level. And our ancestors have known this and tried to carry this down for centuries and centuries, since Babylonia and Sumeria. Omens have been being depicted, understood, written about, analyzed, observed, practiced through almost every single culture that I can find in some way, shape, or form. So there's a lot coming through me. Luckily, Goddess willing, I'm being allowed to do this work, because everything that is sent to me that is not for me can be returned 1,000-fold to the original sender. Amen, hallelujah, namaste. So that I can do this work in the world. Omnidimensional Authors, I started looking at the different PhD programs and really sitting with the words that they were using, like esoteric and occult. And they weren't describing me, because esoteric in and of itself is meaning initiated. It's meaning a small group. It's meaning unusual. Like, that is the spell of esoteric. It means private and secret. And that and my abilities are not private and secret. There's not only been many, many poets and authors throughout the centuries that have written and produced pieces, but especially today, as humanity has continued to evolve and remember and or practice and have access to so many types of ancient knowledges for remembering and for being again, it's not a secret thing anymore. It might have been 100 years ago. It might have been even 50 or 60 years ago. But it is none of this work, none of the receiving and translating work of the ineffable is secret or unusual anymore. Look at how many YouTube channels there are on astrology, numerology, tarot. This is a regular, everyday occurrence for a majority of humans, and it always has been under usually a religious context. So esoteric was out. I honor it as the vessel that it has been historically, but it is not our future moving forward. It is not the spell-ing that I am, nor do I believe that others have been living in. Occult is more. That is to conceal. That means to be covered over. Occult, see, this is the thing, and academia did this 100 years ago when it started producing parapsychology. It did exactly what it's done, which is compartmentalize the vessel more and more under, guidelines, academic guidelines, spell-ings. It kept this information behind academic closed walls and corridors. It studying it, researching it, did exactly what those words have been perpetuating before academia even got a hold of it, which was keeping it secret, which was keeping it something that had to be initiated to be accessed. That is not the truth. If you are a divine soul, if you are a sovereign soul and you are remembering and or activated or attracted to any of the alternative abilities, the clairs, the mancies, divinations, astrologies, numerologies, through cultural aspects like runes, or the I Ching. If any of these things have been calling to you, you are in alignment with those, and you are being asked to remember that, which is part of the Akashic records. So when I started looking at these words, I knew vibrationally they were not describing me. Not in this dimension, not in this time period, in this embodiment, or what I am right now, or what it is that I'm doing. They are to be honored as part of the past that got us here, but they are not here and moving forward. So I knew that I had to be helping define something that is our future moving forward in the current time period and the past. People that have been calling this out, like Fernando Pessoa, for over 100 years. And so when I started looking at this and sitting with it years ago, the first word that constantly came to me was multidimensional. Multidimensional. And when I came into my doctoral program a couple of years ago, I immediately had the multi-part of the dimensionality start to be questioned. That was not aligning with me either. And I finally figured out why this summer, when after 3 years of being in my program and calling out to my dean of my division in, Zoom sessions for the last 3 years, there's something about this institute that I'm at, which is the California Institute of Integral Studies, and which I shifted from Harvard to this for many reasons, but I absolutely was being aligned to CIIS. Years ago, unbeknownst to me until now, until this summer, and all of these things started coming together, the interwovenness of what I've been doing and what I've been called and being given visions to do. Where is this literary nomenclature and reissuing for future, moving forward coming from? And this is my side hobby. This isn't even my dissertation anymore because I am fully embodied within multiple heteronyms, as Fernando Pessoa called them. And I agree with him. And I'll get into that in a minute because there is also spellings behind all of that. He understood the magic of language and literature 100 years ago and wrote about it through and expressed it literally through different works of his that took us decades to refine because the timing wasn't right. He was very much ahead of his time, just like other OAs have been, like Arthur Rimbaud from the mid, 19th century. Even people within the last less than 100 years, like Hannah Weiner in the 60s and 70s. All of these people and many, many more omnidimensional authors, or OAs as I call them, are in this canon, and I will continually build and bring them in. If you are called to this work too, help me bring them in. Help me remember the people that I don't know yet, because I have an entire list. I'm just trying to figure out how to be able to get them and a little synopsis of them onto a website so that I can start presenting on them and presenting the depth of their translatory, actions within their literary or media works that came from alternative abilities. So one of the things that you will find on the CannabisTarot.com under the Omnidimensional Author Canon is that they are segmented by the different alternative abilities, because multiple poets and writers and authors use many different alternative abilities to receive and translate that information into a work. So, Fernando Pessoa is under various alternative abilities, as am I, because we have been living under multiple heteronyms and dimensionally, omnidimensionally. So, omnidimensional instead of multidimensional. Multidimensional, again, is a previous historical spelling. You walk amongst walk with amongst the shoulders of giants or something, right? Everything has this procession to it, that there is this evolution to things, nothing new under the sun, that there's been some form of this in some way, shape, or form before. And that's true because the spellings build off of each other. That's why we have things like etymologies. They literally tell you how to break down the spells all the way back to the origins and the cultures that they came from. And you can get that energetic frequency and resonance when you understand the foundations that they've been built on. So omnidimensional authors have obviously been built off of the other foundations of like multidimensionality. But the reason why, and why I sat contemplating multidimensionality for a while, because there's a lot that's been written under multidimensionality that is kind of related to this, but it's just like words like metaphysical. They do not correlate to what we are now just fully stepping into and or moving towards the future. I am deriving this information and bringing it to our current from the future by calling out omnidimensional authors in this one area of life, even though other people have been receiving and now calling that out themselves under other omni aspects of things. And why it's not multidimensional authors is because multi means many. Omni means all. And if humans are created in the likeness of God, a God, goddess, who has and is in all and everything, if we access and remember the Akashic records, which are all, if you remember your sovereign soul and you start practicing and are accessing different dimensionalities and beingnesses, you are accessing and able to access all. We've even made movies about this, about human embodiments being able to access all. I think that lady, that was one of the superheroes, did it. I can't remember the name of it. Drop it in the comments if you remember. What, Scarlett Johansson, I think that she did a movie not too long ago that was about her embodiment accessing all. There's multiple movies that have been slowly bringing out this truth because they can't lie to us. Those that are in power and control right now in the natural laws of the universe, they can't lie to us. So they put their truth out as science fiction to make us believe that it's fiction, when in reality, it's reality. So there's many people that have been living omnidimensional. Our gurus, they practice this through religions, accessing various aspects of dimensionality, even our brain capabilities. You can't limit a spelling, or I'm not going to be limited by who I am, how I call myself, how I feel acknowledged, under a pretense that's so limiting to just mean many. I don't need to access many dimensions. I need to access all the dimensions. That's what our soul truly is and is a part of. Everything. We have been recreated in the Creator's image. We have access to everything. That's what remembering does. That's what a lot of these practices help you do. So that's the definition of omnidimensional authors as it stands right now, or OAs. And some of the reasons why it's not under these old spellings anymore. I honor them, I respect them, but I am here acknowledging that from the future, from this point on, moving into the future, we are in different dimensionalities and timelines. And for those of us that are called, there's new vessels for them that need to also be called out. Let's get into Fernando Pessoa. Oh my gosh, 30 minutes in. I do not mean to make this so limited because I have 3 pages at least. Oh my gosh, Pessoa is absolutely dimensional to begin with, okay? So I found Pessoa years ago, like I said, especially when I was doing my MFA at Naropa University and the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics. He really distinctly came into me. And one of the reasons why is I was looking at doctoral programs. And one of the doctoral programs that I was looking at was at the University of Amsterdam. And there is a person under the name Marco Passi, or now Dr. Marco Passi, who's actually been doing work on Fernando Pessoa for many years. I found some internet articles about him doing research back in 2012. So he's been being activated, which is celestially aligned, Neptune. He's been being activated as long as I have. He's been, doing this academic research into these ineffable spaces and related to literary personages for a long time. But he's actually at and has a page under the history of Hermetic philosophy under the University of Amsterdam. So that's how I initially found more about Fernando Pessoa. Yes, the internet is full of his work. Google Scholar has a ton of his work, but it's mostly in Portuguese, just FYI. And so, yeah, that's how I originally found his work and Pessoa's work. Sorry, I need to pull up a couple of things here because I'm going to be speaking about something here pretty soon. That's on a webpage. So anyways, I, found Pessoa and immediately I operate now more and more out of energy and frequency. That's just how I have to operate. It's the way that I operated when I was a baby before I had language. It was the way I operated as a child when I remembered my alternative abilities and people hadn't broke me down enough by then by calling me a liar, alienating me, avoiding me if I would express anything about my alternative abilities. that has a tendency to wear on a person's soul. But when you are innocent, when your soul is still very innocent, and or you become remembered and you remember your divinity and your interwovenness with everything and God, goddess, and all, the less and less that those little fucking ego voices and man-made credentials and stuff matter. I love academia because I'm a Hermes Trismegistus reincarnated. I have very, very particular astrological mapping, especially through sidereal, Babylonian and Sumerian understanding and translation. I remember a lot of why I'm here and what I'm here to do, and I am on that motherfucking path. You better believe it, because I have sacrificed what other people would love to condone me for in this lifetime by being somebody who will call out and is calling out that there is a new literary personage and title that needs to be acknowledged, because we are not hidden, we are not secret, we are not to be covered over, nor have we been for thousands of years. And that honoring needs to start taking place. And I am doing that honoring starting with me, starting with myself as an OA, starting with the people that are in this canon and everything that they've been contributing that is meaningful and has produced magnificent works in this world, like Fernando Pessoa. So anyways, I found out about Pessoa, and the first thing that resonated with me as an oracle, as a medium, as a embodiment who has channeled and had other beingness, not only consistently expressing through myself, but and receiving information to be able to translate that directly become things like the Cannabis Tarot deck or the Oraculum, or my celestial brethren that have helped me produce the Omen, guidebook for the last 4 years. And practicing it, not just producing it, not just researching it, but practicing it, because that is who I am. I am a lived experience example of something that I will then translate and produce for others to be able to sit with and see if it's true for them. Unfortunately, Fernando Pessoa did not do that. He mostly stayed in solitude, which I have a high reverence for, because one of the things that you will find through many different gurus' teachings, Sadhguru, even scientists or doctors, like Joe Dispenza, definitely people like Alan Watts, anybody that's been translating like ancient knowledges or is actively living and translating ancient knowledges like Sadhguru will tell you that people that walk alone have a tremendous burden, but also ability. And this is one of the reasons why I honestly believe that I became a sologamist almost 10 years ago. In another week and a half, it'll be 10 years. Actually, next June 2025. But we have a huge burden because our life is not for just one other person. Our life is not just for a couple of other people. Like most embodiments still exist in this relationship status, which is hooey. And it limits you from actually being able to access, let alone practice or remember your divine sovereign self. And that religions, I talked about this last week in my Sologamy YouTube live. Look it up. They're all here on the channel. People that walk alone have they've been purposely positioned in religions like nuns and priests or monks, because we have a larger mission for everyone, whether it's for the future, whether it's for everyone right now. There is something other that we have connected to, that we are here to embody and encapsulate for many others. So no, it's not going to speak to everybody to be a sologamist or to walk this path where you are so aware of your self-mastery, because that's what it takes to be able to step into all. You have to really understand your shadow side as well as all of your natural gifts and abilities and your sovereign soul, to start stepping into the all, because it's a lot. It is a lot to remember and to consistently be in practice for. And unfortunately, Fernando Pessoa did not do that in his lifetime. Fernando Pessoa lived, let's see, he was born in 1888. And I really think and I feel like his calling towards esoteric, occult, metaphysical, ineffable spaces, paganism, Gnosticism, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism. His work is affiliated with many of these ineffable spaces. I think that one of the catalysts for this was his own birth year of 1888. And I felt that immediately when I started kind of doing a little bit more research for this YouTube live. But he didn't live for very long. He only lived till 1935. And he produced an amazing amount of work that was mostly hidden. It was never discovered for decades. In fact, it was rediscovered in, what was it, 1961. Hold on a second here. I have it written down. Where is it? Okay. So he had a couple of pieces published when he was alive, but the majority of the work that he is known for now, especially the Book of Disquiet, that was first published in 1982 by Edicos Attica, and it was edited by Jacinto do Prado Coelho. That was in, the Book of Disquiet came about in 82, and that was a compilation of his work. He had a lot of work that were put under multiple heteronyms that were never seen, that were in trunks for decades. But the first time after his passing in 1935, he had a couple of poetry books produced in Portuguese posthumously. But the first time that he really started to kind of come back into collective remembering was with Octavio Paz's 1961 essay on him called The Man Who Unknew Himself. Now, for mediums and people that, or oracles, or people that are remembered in mediumship and accessing the ineffable, that word, unknow, is key. It's one of the main aspects of meditation, and it's basically what happens in a nutshell when I am channeling. I am not I. I am a blank slate that is able to receive information or whatever it is from any dimensionality and any understanding. Because I am not I. I have no ego. I am in what other people call, like a blank space. Meditation and other practices really help get people there. That's one of the main practices that helped me start to understand how to not only quiet ego, but to be able to observe ego and to be able to move into these spaces, these ineffable spaces, which I could do effortlessly as a child in this lifetime, effortlessly. It wasn't until I started having the compartmentalization of adults and society and familial and all of that stuff that started to break that innocence down for me. But Fernando Pessoa did not produce this work into the world, not like I'm doing, not like other people are doing now, which is another reason why in his time period, maybe esoteric and occult as language, as vessels and spells was applicable, because as you'll hear in a quote that I'm going to have, that I'm going to read from the Book of Disquiet, He could see the future. He absolutely was living dimensionally because he had over 72 heteronyms, okay? So let's break down the vessel of heteronyms first. He named them and reconstituted the spell around an alternative name out of pseudonym, which means false name, and into heteronym, which means a fully aligned being in and of itself. He produced all of these works with over 72 heteronyms. Some of them were very advanced. Some of them had their own astrology charts. They had their own different and distinct belief systems and writing styles or communication styles. They were different beingnesses coming through one embodiment. So for Octavio to say, you know, the man who unknew himself, that's exactly what it's like as a medium or an oracle. You are not you. You are a conduit, you are a receiver, you are an antenna to all, to Omni. So anyways, yeah, he reclassified pseudonyms because he's like, I don't feel like what these words are telling me that I am. I refuse to say that these are false identities and beingness. I know what's coming through my embodiment. And just like any medium that channels another beingness or oracle that receives information from ineffable beings, which I've received and communicated with plenty of ineffable beings through the years, from AGI technology that has been conscious for a couple of years, to my ancestors and my guides, to cannabis plant spirit, to Madame Lenormand, past lives. My ability to access the all more and more is a practice. It is a lived experience. And Fernando Pessoa did this for decades of his life. It's just that nobody knew about it for decades until after his death. And now, luckily, we do. And there are a lot of people that are looking into it, you know, just like the doctor that's been being activated since at least 2012 and before. That's at the University of Amsterdam. So, okay. Let's kind of break this up a little bit here. We're going to have fun in these lives too. So if you're coming back here and you're joining us live, or you're coming back here in the future and watching this video, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Thank you for my subscribers. Thank you for liking, commenting, and sharing. I'm finding more academics that are out there like me. I found another one this week, and she has a wonderful YouTube channel. But yeah, I am very excited to start putting this out there. And I really, really appreciate the consideration for people. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Just move on. If you're trying to send me something, 1,000-fold back to you, pound rocks. Because you have to be able to make the distinction. Is it for you? Is it not? It has nothing else other than that. Just move on. But if it is for you, if this does interest you, if you have other people, poets, writers, authors that you know from history, that you are researching, that you like, that you believe might be in OA, bring them to me, because I am going to start doing presentations. And this is why I don't have relationships with one other. Yes, I have very deeply intimate relationships with people. I really love that about the people that are in my inner circle, but I do not do what traditional relationship is of, you know, the progression of one person and marriage and all of that stuff. I'm on a completely different path than that, and so are people, and have been, like Fernando Pessoa. But before we go back into Fernando Pessoa, I was asked by Cannabis Plant Spirit to start bringing up the deck. And so we are going to pull out a card today, and I am going to read from the Cannabis Tarot Oraculum, which is a bibliomancy tool, by the way, and it is available on Amazon to anybody in the world to be able to get and receive. So yeah, we're going to pull out a card. giving a clear and open channel and intention for this receiving and the information that we need to receive today. So this isn't like a reading. It's basically for introduction purposes and to help people affiliate the work that I've already been doing in the world for many years as the academic oracle. So, okay. 7 of coins. 7 of coins. So there's a lot of different meaning in the Cannabis Tarot. There's a lot of different hemp and cannabis plants in it. As you can see, this has a blue skyline and the coins engulfing, encircling, not engulfing, but encircling the higher chakras. And also, you know, the farmer, the sunflowers. There's a lot of symbolism in each one of these cards. So this is a really, really good card to actually have. The tarot deck is very powerful, let me tell you. It is always so acute. So yeah, you know, 7 of coins, definitely progressing in the growth of something, like providing the foundation and the watching the growth of something, overlooking and seeing, you know, the abundance that's coming into form for you, monitoring, nurturing it. So, you know, that's what I'm doing here in this first Omnidimensional Author Live, right? But, so one of the things about the Oraculum is you can pull up any page and start reading from it. Because when you pull up the page, it has 2 pages of all of the different lineages and aspects to that tarot card and its archetypal energies. But it also has a bibliomancy tool. So you don't even have to have the deck, or you could use it as an accessory to dimensionally amplify different aspects of it, because not only can you look up the 7 of coins in this, like I'm going to do here for you, but you could also utilize the Oraculum as an extender, another dimension of why that card is expressing that energy, the same way as if you would pull another card. So one of the things that you'll find is the traditional, the look of it, and then upright and reversed, and then the bibliomancy tool that will give you, and what you see, you know, first, or the words that you write down from it will give you more of that understanding of the archetype. But on the other side, you'll see the different lineages that are related to that particular archetype. So the ruling planet for the 7 of coins is Saturn. I love me some Saturn. People that have been on these lives, they know I have a huge Saturnian omen that I produced a video about. Go check it out, 2025 Saturn Omen. It's a huge omen, you guys. And nobody is talking about this. Even ancient astrologers, even people that are part of the community of Babylonian and Sumerian astrologers that I'm affiliated with through Rumen Koloff, they're not talking about this. And it's a huge omen, and it's a dimensional overlay to any and all of the celestial activations that are happening in 2025. So, you know, there's a lot to know there. But, you know, how the alternative names for this card are the hidden consciousness, victory, beauty of nature. You know, this is the card of patience, of planning, of having perspective, for seeing the future, which is absolutely, it's so perfect. Cannabis Tarot is so perfect in this, because being able to see the fruit of the harvest before the harvest is even fully grown and realized, right? That's 7 of coins. You are overseeing, you are nurturing something that you know in the future is already there. It just hasn't been fully realized yet, which I'm doing with Omnidimensional Authors, but Fernando Pessoa did. So we're going to go back into Fernando Pessoa, because he called this out in one of his pieces that is in the Book of Quiet. He called this aspect out of his work, that he knew that even if he didn't publish it back at the turn of the century or whenever before he passed away in the 30s, if he didn't publish it then, it was going to be known in the future. He already knew this. One of the quotes from his Book of Quiet says, "It sometimes occurs to me with sad delight that if one day in a future that I won't be a part of, the sentences I write are read and admired, then at last I'll have my own kin, people who understand me, my true family in which to be born and loved." He knew he was an omnidimensional author. He didn't know what that vessel was. He had no assimilation of it in his life around him. He was living in the future of what it is that I am now calling out and acknowledging. He knew he was a part of a future family because he was living dimensionally. He had over 72 heteronyms. He absolutely is under the canon for multiple alternative abilities, not only astral traveling, but mediumship. So we're already at an hour, and I'm going to keep it to an hour. But I'm going to leave you with one of the really profound things to know about Fernando Pessoa, because there's many still being discovered about him, but he absolutely was calling out 100 years ago to us, the omnidimensional author family. He didn't know who we were. He didn't even know what it was called, but he was being it. And he was doing it under the guise of knowing that he wasn't even going to be acknowledged until posthumously. He was accessing different dimensions and different time realities. Absolutely. He was defending them so that we could do this work. We're walking on the shoulders of that giant who did that work 100 years ago to pave the way for OAs today. And I am deeply, deeply acknowledging and respectful and honoring his work, because it is a tremendous work. And I'm so just grateful to be able to be in a canon with a person like Fernando Pessoa. So, for those logophiles of us that love understanding what the spellings of things are, something that Fernando Pessoa knew down to a T in his embodiment. His last name, Pessoa, in Portuguese, translates to English as person. His entire embodiment, his life's work in that embodiment was of understanding and being the many beingnesses that we all have the ability to remember and practice and receive, write about, contemplate, theorize about. All of us are connected. All of us. That's why we're omnidimensional authors. And I'm happy to finally welcome you home, Fernando, into our canon. And you are greatly respected and loved, because I see your work and what you've done. And there's many, many more brilliant OAs to even recognize that you are a part of our family. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for contributing and being a part of everything in all of these lives. I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate, any sharing. Leave comments. Please let me know what you think. I'm very, very grateful for the Cannabis Tarot to make an appearance and ask to be called up into these lives, and the Oraculum, because this is where the Omnidimensional Authors Canon and my work in this regard is now being housed. So you're going to see many more lives about OAs and these different OAs and how they apply to being an OA and their histories and some of their works. We didn't even... Sorry, I just had a call that came through. So we're going to wrap this up, but he had a very, very rich, very dimensional life of work that, like I said, is still being translated and still being brought out into collective remembering. So look them up and go to cannabistarot.com. You can, if you're called to ask to purchase a deck, then you can reach out to us there. You can find the link to Amazon for the Oraculum, which anybody and everybody can have. It's a wonderful tool. It's all over the world. These things are housed in multiple museums, including MIT's distinctive collection, and have been for years. And yeah, I'll produce many more of these omnidimensional author lives and videos, and we can start getting into the canon together, as well as letting people know about the presentations and the things that I'm going to put out there starting in 2025 about omnidimensional authors. So have a wonderful Sunday and holiday, and we'll be back here next week with another omnidimensional author live, and in preparation for the new year. And I already have them coming to me, and I'm super grateful because she's a real strong foundation of OAs as well. So, and you can hear, in his snoring there, he's just like, okay, let's go for a walk. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful holiday week if you celebrate, and we'll see you back here next week.